This is the Mazda CX-5, a global Mazda SUV that has been around for a while and we've really come to like it. This is the Mazda CX-60. It takes the Mazda philosophy and looks at it from a different angle. Both are fantastic and should definitely be on your shortlist, but which is the right one for you? I'm AJ, this is Autogefühl, and in today's episode, we're going to take a closer look. The front design of the CX-5 is something that we've known for a long time. This car has been around for quite a while. In its latest iteration with this facelift, you get these nice LED headlights in the front, a very similar, familiar front grille, a two-dimensional Mazda logo that houses some of the driver assistance systems for the radar control, and a nice chrome accent swinging down here like a bow at the bottom of the grille. The CX-60, on the other hand, has a more flat and upright bonnet. It's a lot more squared out. It has more chrome accents here at the top, a more horizontal LED strip. This also gets a much more sophisticated matrix LED light system as well, and definitely a lot taller. Having these two SUVs side by side, it's clear that the CX-60 is bigger than the CX-5. This is about 4.75 meters. This is about 4.57 meters. This weighs about 2.1 tons, thanks to that PHEV system. This weighs about 1.6 tons. In fact, in the US with the CX70, it's bigger still. It's actually wider and even longer. It's pretty strange that Mazda has created two sub-platforms for the same model. Anyway, the CX-5, again, a very familiar shape to us. This has been around for a long time. In this case, we have really nice wheels. I do like this design. It's very simple, kind of has that gunmetal gray finish. This particular one is 19 inches. Already you can see what we were talking about earlier. The CX-5 has a more snouty front end. It's lower than the CX-60, which is flatter and taller. And the silhouette is very soft curves, not many sharp edges. A pretty tall and flat side panel of the body. And I do like this Mazda Soul Red color. A very coupe-like sloping roofline. So in the end, I think a very smart looking SUV. What do you think? Put it down in the comments below. The CX-60, on the other hand, well, thanks to the longitudinally mounted front engine, the bonnet looks a bit longer. It again has a higher and flatter proportion. These wheels are also bigger. These are 20-inch wheels with dual tone color finish, more glossy rather than the matte gunmetal finish on the CX-5. PHEV badging, again, for this drivetrain. And a lot more sleek. I would say this is a lot more straighter, a lot more flatter than the more curvaceous CX-5. Still a sloping roofline here in the back. Between the two, I like the CX-60, but what about you guys? Put it down in the comments below. Both these SUVs are quite similar in their rear profile. They both have these really nice spoilers and this curvaceous haunch right in the middle. But as we go further down, the differences start becoming more apparent. First of all, the CX-5 has these double-barrel tail lamps, which are similar to the double-barrel headlamps, which look really nice. The CX-60, of course, has a single barrel and then more horizontal elements, just like in the front as well. Down here, though, this is the biggest difference, because on the CX-5, we have actual real exhaust tips, twin exhaust tips, whereas on the CX-60, well, these are just cosmetic. And this again begs the discussion, real tips or fake tips? To me, I like these, but what about you? Put it down in the comments. And furthermore, let us know a little bit about you, how old you are, where you live, what kinds of cars you like. Maybe there's a trend that we can analyze. More traditional buyers like me prefer these kinds of things, but maybe people who prefer hybrids or are younger than I am don't really care. Put it down in the comments below. We're all about the details, so here are the turn indicators at the back of the CX-60 and the turn indicators at the back of the CX-5. Here are the turn indicators at the front of the CX-60 and the indicators on the CX-5. Both the CX-5 and the CX-60 have the same key fob, which is nice. I really like the way it looks. Thankfully, they're in matching colors of the car, so I know which key belongs to what car. Both of them have keyless entry. What that means is you put it in your pocket, approach the car. In the CX-5's case, you have to press this black button and it unlocks. The door opens nice and wide. It's also got a nice heft to it. You have a fairly black interior. You have different options for the upholstery. In this case, there is a brown leather and there's glossy black here. I also do appreciate the wooden inlay and this little strip of chrome. So definitely well finished. Definitely has a very robust feel to it. Soft touch materials all around. Harder plastics down here, but that's acceptable. Bose sound system, which sounds pretty good. Both of these cars have Bose sound systems, and I'll talk more about that later on when we're driving. The interior of the CX-5, again, is familiar, but is quite dark. So the dashboard is quite dark. You have fabric options for the seats, which is definitely what I would prefer. There's a leatherette option as well, but unfortunately the high level trims for both these SUVs, you only get animal skin, which is not necessarily what I prefer. In this case, it's brown. Getting inside is easy because it's an SUV, so higher ground clearance, taller body, so you don't have to bend your head, and it's a nice hip, the heat seat is at your hip height. Electronically adjustable seats with memory, and a very upright seating position. I'm 5'8" or 1.73 meters. I have that much headroom. Really good overview. Nice steering wheel grip as well. Hop inside and let's take a closer look. The steering wheel also has a lot of different buttons on it to control the adaptive cruise control and the speed limiter on the right hand side, and your music and audio system here on the left hand side. Paddle shifters, which is great. So you can also quickly change the gears in this 6-speed automatic transmission. The cockpit is also really easy to read. You have a tachometer on the left and some fuel and temperature gauges on the right. But the screen in the middle is in fact a screen. So that affords you quite a lot of flexibility to get through different options. For example, your trip meter and a view for the assistance systems. On the right hand side, nice air vents here. Pretty simple design. Really plush and well-fitted dashboard. A nice screen here. It isn't a touchscreen in this case, but it's controlled by the controller down here. I always like Mazda systems. They're very simple. You only have a list of 5 options. You don't have a huge display with a million different options, and you have to look through hundreds of menus to find the little things that you need. It's very easy to operate, a very simple system, so definitely what I prefer. Further down, you definitely will enjoy having buttons for pretty much all of your climatization, although some quirky things that I don't think is executed so well. For example, the steering wheel heat button is up here, the seat heating button is here, and the seat cooling button is here. So it's a little bit strange that these buttons are scattered across vertically versus being closer together, but at least you have buttons. Dual zone climate control, inductive charging pad, 12-volt power socket, the works. The gear lever feels quite sturdy. Down here you also have the drive mode selector, and then this is where you control your screen. So you have some nice shortcuts to go back, to go jump directly to your music, home, navigation, and this is kind of a joystick which you can use to go back and forth, up and down. You also have the select button, and it's also rotary. So at the end of the day, it's a very intuitive system to use. There's a separate knob here as well for the volume. So this falls really easy to hand when you have your arm on the center armrest, and then you can quickly use these buttons to manipulate the system. Some cup holders, and again, Mazda's attention to detail and quality really shines. A lot of the things in this car are damped, including, for example, the center armrest. The glove box is also very nicely damped. You have a little coin tray up here, but you can remove that. And there's further storage down there with 2 USB-A slots and another 12-volt power socket. This system also has inbuilt navigation, which isn't the fastest. Also, I tried using the voice command to put in an address, and it just did not work. That's also unfortunately because I've changed the language to English, and while I'm filming here in Germany today, it doesn't recognize German street names. So not the best system, but the good news is you can just go and use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and it takes up the entire screen, which is great. Then you can still use the shortcuts on your on the control pad here. So if I press home, I don't go to the home of the screen of Mazda, but I go to the home screen of the Apple CarPlay. So, and here as well, you can use the controller to search for your address. So in the end, I like the execution of the Apple CarPlay here. All right, let's take a look at the back seat. The door opens also really wide. It's a pretty 90-degree angle actually, which means that it's easy to put in your child's seats. The door is also finished quite well with the same materials that we saw in the front, so it feels definitely quite premium and quite robust. Getting inside is also very easy, thanks to that height of the body as well as the ground clearance. The seats are also very nice and comfortable. I have a seat back pocket up front. I'm 5'8" or about 1.73 meters. This seat is set to my driving position, so I have plenty of knee room. I have plenty of space under the seat to put my feet under that. The seat is also quite low because I like to have a low seating position, and that doesn't mean that I lose out any space. So space is really great. Headroom is also adequate. There is no panoramic sunroof of any kind, no sunroof either in this case. So definitely very spacious. Isofix child seats here at the rear, outside 2 seats. In fact, if you look at the contour of the seat, you'll also notice that this is a very nice contoured under thigh support, whereas here in the middle, it isn't so. So the center seat is not very comfortable for an adult. So 3 adults abreast, not the best. Instead, if you have 2 people only, you can flip the center armrest down. You get a little cubby hole down here with a couple USB slots as well, and seat heating buttons here. Now, I've driven this car on long road trips with family members, so people sitting in the back, and one thing that I noticed actually is that while it's comfortable and the seat heating really helps, when you have this armrest down and you have your arm like this, you inadvertently turn the seat heater down, and that results in an unwarranted warm rump. So, I would have preferred if these buttons were up here where the air conditioning vents are, so you can just turn that on and off. But maybe next generation they will change that little quirk. But overall, very comfortable. All right, now the CX60 also has keyless entry, but you just got to put your hand inside the handle. No button here. Door opens really nice and wide, but right away, the design is so different and to my eyes looks so much nicer. I always prefer a light colored interior. Yes, I don't have kids, I don't have a dog, so I can keep it clean. It's not a big problem for me. And it just makes the interior look so bright and airy. I also love this fabric inside here. It's soft, it's got a beautiful texture. I love the wood inserts here. You can also feel the grains and the texture of the wood. I also like this chrome strip. I like these fins, very 80s Cadillac. I don't know, what do you guys think? It's kind of like the fin of these old Cadillacs, you know? It's got these nice little grooves as well. Yes, you do get fabric seats, but unfortunately, same as before, upper in the trim levels, you only get animal skin. I wish there was a leatherette option. But let's divert our attention to the interior. And this interior, the dashboard itself is probably the first thing that grabs your attention with, again, that fabric and the stitching, which is a very different kind of take on interior design. I think Mazda has done a fantastic job here. Let's take a seat inside because this interior is very inviting. Definitely makes you feel like you're sitting in a very premium car. That's the first impression. I love that the air vents here kind of jut out, so there's a nice cohesion from the door panel to the dashboard. You have this one element which is curved, which connects and kind of creates this curvature. So detailing is what this interior is all about. Hop inside and let's take a closer look. The steering wheel has this rim in the middle, reminds me of the Volvo steering wheel actually. So the grip is a little bit interrupted because you have this little ridge in the middle. Nevertheless, it's got a nice sporty grip, a deep dish kind of a design. Similar controls for the adaptive cruise control with the lane keeping assist on the right-hand side and your audio and telephony controls here. Paddle shifter, so again, very similar to the CX-5, but whereas the steering column was adjustable manually in the CX-5, here it's controlled automatically with this button, which means you can have that as part of the memory to store your seating position and directly jump in. and use your pre-selected user profile to set up the entire car the way you like. This is also a digital cockpit, which means that this is all a screen. By default, you get a tachometer on the left side. Again, being a plug-in hybrid, you also get the charge. So this has recuperative braking, so you can see how much of that you're generating. And then you have a speedometer right in the middle, and then some fuel and the battery charge on the left-hand side. But if you, for example, turn on the assistance systems, the screen changes itself. And for example, if you change the driving mode, now we go to sport, for example, you'll see that the gauges turn red. So there's some different animations. You have EV mode as well as off-road mode. Now this is all-wheel drive, and there's ground clearance to at least get you over the rough stuff, but this is definitely not a very capable off-roader. It's more of a rough roader, I would say. But nevertheless, you also have different options to change through the screen on the right-hand side. For example, if you want to see your mileage, if you want to see the temperature gauge or things like that, you can change that on the right-hand side. Now let's take a look at the main screen. So this is longer, it's a bigger screen than you see on the CX-5. However, there are bezels here on the left and on the right side. But to be honest, I think it looks really neat. It's executed quite well. You do have plenty of real estate for the screen. Again, this is not a touchscreen. It's all operated by a similar controller down here. Very simple menu. So again, the same Mazda menu that you see in the CX-5 you get here. But the navigation is a little bit better. But at the same time, it's not as nice as just using Google. The voice command as well I tried here did not work. But like before, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So you can just go there. And even here, it takes up the entire screen. Looks really easy, looks really nice. You have your apps on the right side here. And then again, you can use the home button shortcut and it goes home here. So it doesn't necessarily jump back to the main screen. So I like that you can use these shortcuts there as well. But oh, look at this interior. Look at that texture. Oh, it's so nice. I really, really appreciate this. To me, this is a great design. I also like this chrome that runs through the middle. Down here, this is a much wider center console. Again, nice chrome finishes, and that wood. It feels like I'm sitting next to a tea table because it's got this nice wood. And sure enough, you can put your tea if you're drinking tea down here in the middle. The gear lever also looks significantly different. It's a lot stubbier. It's a lot more. It fits in the palm of your hand rather than just a ball that you cup. So this feels a little bit nicer to hold. You have much more driving profiles here. Like we said, you have sport, normal, EV, and off-road, which you would control with this selector here. You also have hill descent control. You can also quickly turn on the camera. So if you're trying to park the car, you can see that you have a nice 360-degree camera. It is also available in the CX-5, but the resolution of these cameras is better than the CX-5, but you have the same 360 cameras in both. You can see that over there. So really easy to jump to that. But the most important button over here is this button. So now this button is an interesting feature. So being a plug-in hybrid, you have to charge your car at home. Otherwise, it does not make sense to have a plug-in hybrid because it just, you get the worst of both. You don't get the best of both. You get the worst of both because if you have a dead battery, you're hauling around all that extra weight for nothing. So if you don't get a chance to charge your electric battery at home or by plugging it in, this is a very useful feature. You can turn this on. You can change the target that you want the car to charge. And then as you're driving, the petrol engine will charge the battery up to 100%, 90%, you can select here. And in this way, let's say you want to arrive with a certain charge to be able to drive electric inside a city center, then you can be sure that you charge that up before you get there. However, this ruins your petrol mileage. I tried this out a couple times and I would get numbers as high as 12 or even 14 liters for 100 kilometers. So again, plug-in hybrids only make sense if you can charge them every day at home. but that's an interesting option to have. And finally, the same control system as we saw in the CX-5, a little bit nicer here, a little bit wider, but the same joystick in the middle, which you can also use to, press down and so on and so forth. The same shortcuts, the same volume, electronic parking brake and auto hold. Like the CX-5, the CX-60 also has attention to detail and quality, a nice damped and felt-lined glove box, which is really cool, and a center armrest, which you can flip up. And it has USB-C ports down here. And again, felt lined so you can keep your phone and some other items. Inductive charging, 12-volt power socket, and then again, buttons galore for your climatization. I like these buttons a little bit better because you have these kind of switches here instead of rotary dials. I think they both work really well. But what this CX60 does better than the CX5 is right here. You have the steering wheel heating button, seat heating button, and cooling button all right next to each other versus having it vertically stacked in different places in the CX5. This, to me, is a much neater layout. So overall, I definitely prefer the interior design of the dashboard in the CX60. What about you? The CX60 is definitely larger, so as expected, the interior is also much more spacious. It's wider, there's more legroom. So again, 5'8", 1.73 meters. This is set to my driving position. Plenty of legroom, plenty of space for me to put my feet under the front seat, even though this is in the lowest position. And this is a rear-wheel drive platform, remember, and a plug-in hybrid, but my knees are not upright. I have pretty decent under-thigh support. There isn't an enormous transmission tunnel in the middle either, so a really practical use of space. Also talking about practicality, those seat heating buttons are right here, so you don't accidentally turn them on. Air conditioning vents, also USB-C charging ports, as well as a 220-volt AC power socket. So fantastic. You can plug in your laptop charger or other heavier devices right there. Door pockets as well. Again, lovely interior, a lot of nice ambient lighting, although you cannot change the color of the ambient lighting, and it's just about here. So its premium quality interior in a very different way than, say, Mercedes, where it's so much about those interior lights, which I actually like those ambient lights and those colors. It's fun, it's funky. Here it's about these materials and just a very subtle, warm white glow. Huge panoramic sunroof here, so again, lots of light with this white interior. This is my kind of preference just because it feels more spacious, it brings more air and light into the cabin, and therefore it's a lot more comfortable for longer journeys. You don't feel hemmed in or claustrophobic. Center armrest, simply with cup holders in this case, and ISOFIX child mounts on the outside two seats as well. The CX-5 can be had with an electric tailgate, but you still have to push the button in this case. And inside you get 522 liters of boot space, a very flat loading area. Down here you have further storage. And in this case, well, we have the first aid kit and the hazard triangle. Some little nooks on the side as well. You can remove this panel if you like and kind of stow it away as well. And then now you have more volume. However, what I'm not so happy about is the fact that there aren't any lights back here. In fact, a couple days ago, I was coming back from the grocery store. Again, you have to push the button, and then I was trying to put my items in. I couldn't see what was happening because it's so dark inside and there are no lights. So it's a bit of a shame. On the other hand, though, at least you get switches here to flip the rear seats down, and they do fold completely flat. There we go. This is hitting the front seat, but otherwise it does fold pretty flat. And now you have a very neat loading area. The CX60, on the other hand, does have a very neat sensor, so you get the added benefit here. This is 570 liters, so considerably more. It's also a little bit longer in this direction, so you can already load longer items without having to fold the seats down. And lo and behold, there's a light. Yay, such a simple thing, but it makes such a big difference. A netted compartment here on the left-hand side, pretty flat over here. 12-volt power socket, which is also there in the CX5. But now the question is, how does it look down here? Well, as imagined, not that great, because this is where you have more gubbins for the PHEV system. You also have the charger cable, and this is from the Bose sound system. More on that later on. But ultimately, I think this is still a very usable space. It's got plenty of width, and it's quite flat. And like the CX-5, this also folds completely flat if I were to go to the side and push the seats down. Now you have even more space, and you can also load longer items. These two SUVs are on significantly different platforms, so let's first take a look at the engine. This CX-5 has a 2.5-litre inline-4 naturally aspirated petrol engine that's good for 194 horsepower. It's transversely mounted, which means it's front-wheel drive, and in this case comes with a 6-speed automatic transmission. You have other engine options, smaller ones, manual as well. The Mazda manuals are fantastic. You even get an all-wheel drive version. In the US, in fact, you get a turbocharged 2.5 petrol, and that would probably be the best pick because it has the most power. The CX-60, on the other hand, as you can see, while it also has a 2.5-litre naturally aspirated inline-4 petrol engine, is longitudinally mounted. This means that this platform is indeed rear-wheel drive biased, but this particular version that we have here is all-wheel drive and also has a hybrid electric motor system, the combined output of which is 324 horsepower. In this case, this is mated to a 8-speed automatic. All right, so let's take a drive in the CX-5. I'm on some country roads here. So let's go into sport mode. 194 horsepower from a 2.5-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. Front-wheel drive, but this has the G-Vectoring Control Plus system. So already around these corners, this feels very much like a Mazda. It has a nice balance, of really nice turn in. The steering is very precise, really communicative. This G-Vectoring Control Plus system cuts the engine torque a little bit and uses brake-based torque vectoring to help stabilize the car. It might sound like, hey, are you cutting power? Well, in a way, yes, but at the end of the day, the effect is, very positive. You don't feel like there's any kind of traction control cutting the power. It's just helps you stabilize the car around the corner. The chassis is also really well balanced in terms of firmness, so it's not too firm that it's uncomfortable. The roads, it glides over the roads and with a very supple nature. It's not definitely a soft car, but it's not stiff. And in Europe, especially here where we're driving around Heidelberg, near Germany, the road surfacing is quite nice. I've driven this car on some rough cobblestone streets earlier, and there as well, it was not uncomfortable, not worse than any car. So on average, the chassis balance, the suspension damping rather, is really nice. The stiffer suspension helps around corners. So like right now, we're going around this roundabout here. Great steering, great body control, not much body roll. Tires are very happy, very direct. So it's definitely very fun to drive. It has that true Mazda philosophy. The engine also sounds quite nice, to be honest. This 4-liter engine, again, it loves to be revved since it's naturally aspirated. And to be honest, this is the engine to get because the smaller petrol engines make the CX-5 seem a little bit underpowered. In the US, you get a turbocharged engine, and that's probably the best. But to be honest, I think for this size and weight, this 2.5 is the engine to get. Smaller ones definitely feel a little bit lethargic. So, in sport mode, put my foot down, a little bit of tire slip, really revs all the way to 6,000 RPM. Sounds really nice too on the inside. Holds the gear for a while, so you can really enjoy this. Definitely a very engaging car to drive. If I put it back down into normal mode, the engine now shifts up a lot sooner. Throttle response is a little bit dulled, but not so much. But again, the steering and chassis remain the same. The seats hold you in place pretty well, but there's not so much of side bolstering as such. In fact, the seats to me seem a little bit narrow. CX60, we'll see how that compares, but for somebody of my size, dare I say I'm not too wide, it does feel a little bit on the narrow side. Speaking of the seat comfort, the cushioning is really nice and supportive, but the heating on the seats takes a long time. So generally, when I sit in my car and it's cold like it is today, I turn the seat heater on and that warms me up much before the air conditioning is warm enough because it has to wait for the engine. In that way, this takes a little bit longer and I'm not sure why. So a little bit of points reduction for that, I suppose. The seating position is really great. You are sitting up high. You do feel like you're sitting in an SUV. The seat is set to the lowest position because that's how I find it most comfortable. And the view out forward is great though. So because of this higher seating position, you have a really nice view out front. The windows on the side are quite big. You have an auto-dimming rear view mirror, so really nice at night. The view out the back is also really great because you have a nice big rear windshield as well. So visibility is also fantastic. This gearbox does a pretty good job between shifts. You don't really feel it too much. You can hear the engine a lot. Now, if you're somebody who enjoys that, it's great. If you're not somebody who likes that and you want a quieter car, well, this might be an issue because there's no way to turn the exhaust note down or anything like that. The infotainment system we spoke about is nice. The navigation is okay. You can use your Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. But this system is a little bit slow to respond. We'll see if the CX60 is better or worse. But overall, the CX-5 definitely feels lighter on its feet. It's definitely very fun to drive. The steering is really direct. The G vectoring Control Plus, it's a funny name. Basically the torque vectoring and the engine torque reduction system makes a big difference. You might not notice that it's there, but the end result is definitely very positive. All right, coming up onto the Autobahn now. On this on-ramp as well, handling really nice. Plenty of grip, even though it's just front-wheel drive. Put my foot down, a lot of noise, pleasant noise, not really translating too much into a surge, to be honest, but it's not too bad. So this part of the Autobahn is unrestricted, so let's go a little bit faster here. Let's see how it feels. At 150 kilometers an hour, it's pretty stable. Again, there's a lot of assistance systems to make this high-speed highway driving safer. You have blind spot monitoring, including a notification on your head-up display. So if you're trying to, come out into the lane to overtake and there's a car behind you, you get a audible notification as well as a visual notification. At this speed, you do hear a bit of wind noise. Now I'm at 130, which is the standard speed here in Germany. It's definitely not too loud, but I hear a lot of wind noise. Don't hear too much of tire noise. This Bose audio system sounds really nice. Unfortunately, I cannot play copyrighted music inside to show you that, and you wouldn't be able to tell with this microphone. But take it from me, it sounds really nice. But this also has an additional feature where it tries to compensate for the road noise. It's not an active noise cancelling system, which of course Bose is very well known for, but it does try to drown out some of the road noise and the wind noise at higher speeds. And I have tested this earlier on, since I've had these cars for a while, and it does definitely make a difference. We'll take a look at how the CX60 behaves there. Now, talking about assistance systems, I can activate the lane keeping assist along with the adaptive cruise control. I can set the speed to 130. There's also traffic sign recognition, so it can tell you when the speed limit is changing. And again, if I veer close to the edge of the lane, it will bring me back and center me, and then give me an audible notification for that as well. So again, when you're going on long drives with the family and you have kids in the back maybe, and they're kind of distracting you, you don't have to worry. You have a safety net that you can rely on. And this 2.5 liter engine is also decently frugal. It's not the most efficient, but at the same time, keep in mind, this is a bigger SUV. So we're getting about 8 liters for 100 kilometers. You can expect slightly better numbers as well if you do more motorway driving, more Autobahn driving without a heavy foot. Around 120 kilometers per hour is the sweet spot there, where you get a good compromise of speed and mileage. So overall, to me, the takeaway is the driving dynamics. It's simple, it's what you expect from Mazda, and it doesn't disappoint you there. All right, now the CX-60, and again, comparable to the CX70 in the US. Getting it out onto the highway, already you can feel the weight of this SUV more than the CX5. This is 2.1 tons compared to the 1.6, so what is that, about 500 kilos more? Quite a bit, actually. But this, of course, has the plug-in hybrid with the combined output of 324, which is significantly more than the 194. So does that really help? We're about to find out. So getting onto the highway definitely feels quite planted. The wheelbase, of course, is longer than the CX-5. The width, so the track thereby, is also wider. It's also taller. It's also longer. So it's bigger in every dimension than the CX-5. So that definitely affords it more stability out on the highway. And this electric motor also means that I have an immediate torque and immediate acceleration. So you can definitely feel that. Let's put my foot down. You can hear the engine. It sounds a little bit deeper here, even though it's the same 2.5. It's unrestricted Autobahn right here. The same 140 feels quieter than the CX-5, feels a lot more planted here. It switches between the EV mode and the petrol engine. You can see that right there on the display. When the EV light is on, then you know you're driving in electric only, and then you know that when it turns off, the engine is on. You can feel that it is perceptible. It's not too abrupt, but it's not buttery smooth. I would say it's definitely not something that's a problem. It's definitely not something you feel annoyed by, but it's not the most seamless transition between EV mode and the the petrol engine mode. This also has driver assistance system, so you can activate that here. You can set that to the speed limit. In this case, it recognizes the speed limit as well, so the traffic sign recognition, and you can just use this RES button, the reset button, to set the speed limit instead of having to tick up or tick down with the clicker here. So right now, it's keeping a safe distance with the car in front, maintaining the lane. So if I go to the side a little bit, if I veer to the edge, you see that it will correct me automatically. So it's, again, a great safety net to have. This also has a Bose audio system, but it's even better. So again, I can't play music for you, but this definitely is nicer. It's very easy to identify, listen to the same kind of music, and switch between cars as I've been doing. You can definitely notice that this audio system is much better. It also does a better job of masking some of this road and wind noise without any music. You can hear that, but when that music is playing, it's got a nice kind of surround sound, and it drowns out the drone. Apart from that, let's talk a little bit about the seats. So these seats are definitely wider than the CX-5, so it's a little bit more comfortable. But the same issue with the seat heater I find here, that it takes a little bit too long when it's a freezing cold day like it is today, and you jump in and you turn it on. Within the first 90 seconds to 2 minutes, you want the seat to be starting to feel warm enough that you're getting comfortable while the engine warms up. Whereas this case, it kind of doesn't do that quick enough, and it takes the same amount of time as the engine to heat up and the air to be warm. So I wish that would be something they can address. But otherwise, Visibility is great. I also have the seat now in the lowest position. I do feel like I'm sitting in an SUV, so it's definitely a little bit more upright. It's a little bit higher, which is nice. You get a nice view out front, large windows on the side, big rear window as well with this, again, auto dimming inside the rear view mirror as well as outside the rear view mirror. So again, really nice technology there as well. The navigation system here as well, I would prefer the Android Auto, but this whole system, to be honest, crashed on me once. Actually, I think it was yesterday. I had turned it on, I was driving, it just froze, and then it rebooted itself. So it's software, it's how it is. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the music to start playing as well. So not the best system, but these things can be easily fixed with updates since it's just software. And being a plug-in hybrid, you get great mileage if you charge the EV as often as you can. But again, you have the regen braking and you have this auto car charge when you use the petrol engine to charge the battery while driving, which I would only recommend if you're in dire need of battery at the end of your drive to drive electric in the city. So right now we're not getting good mileage. I'll report back on it a little bit, but on the whole, the mileage is definitely very finicky, and it really depends on a lot of factors here in this plug-in hybrid. So mileage in plug-in hybrids is very finicky. You have to be able to charge it every day to top up that battery, and that's when you get the best. That's when you get the boost to get the extra acceleration. That's when you can use the EV mode only, and that's when you get better mileage. So you can expect in real world around 2 to 3 liters for 100 kilometers in terms of petrol consumption, and about 25 kilowatt hours for 100 kilometers in terms of battery consumption. Right now I'm seeing a lot higher numbers. I'm seeing about 5.5 liters for 100 kilometers and about 37 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. But then again, I haven't been driving too long, and I also haven't been able to charge the battery too much. But pure electric range is also very limited. In the real world, I only see numbers around 35 kilometers. So yeah, a pure petrol version where you save that weight might be better if you're not able to charge it regularly. If you can charge it regularly and you do get a benefit in terms of taxation with this, with it being a plug-in hybrid, then sure, I think that would make more sense. All right, now let's take a look at how the CX-60 behaves on some winding roads. So let's put it into sport mode. And now the hybrid system uses the electric motor to give you a better boost. So you have even sharper acceleration. This definitely feels a lot more fast compared to the CX-5. The brake pedal is definitely a bit more wooden. You have to stand on it to get it to stop more. That's again because of the regenerative braking. You have paddle shifters, but the gearbox does a really nice job on its own. It's quick to shift, it holds the gear. So this definitely moves a lot faster than the CX-5. However, there are two negative points, I would say. First is the steering. I think the steering is the biggest letdown. It is definitely vague. In the center, there's a lot of play before you feel any turn in. It's not very direct. It's a very slow-acting steering. The feedback is really inconsistent. And in general, this doesn't feel like a Mazda steering wheel to me. The CX-5, on the other hand, feels so much nicer. You know, I was surprised because this is a rear-wheel drive platform, so I felt that, generally, because I drive a rear-wheel drive car as my daily car, it's definitely a lot more agile, and the front wheels communicate more to me than my front-wheel drive car does. But in this case, it's the other way around. The front-wheel drive car is definitely much more engaging in the steering than this car here. The other negative point about the CX-60 is the suspension. And I think this is, again, down to the extra weight and then how they're trying to compensate for that weight and body roll. As you'll see now, the body roll is not too bad for a car of this size. It definitely rolls, but not so much more than expected. and you have all-wheel drive, so there's always grip when you're going around corners like that, but you feel the undulations of the road a lot more. In a true-blooded sports car, you know, if it's a nice little sports car like the MX-5 and you really want to feel the surface really well, you want to feel the undulation so that you can understand the surface of the road, the traction better, then it makes sense. But here, it doesn't work because the steering is letting it down. It's a big, heavy SUV, but the suspension is still so, you know, you feel every rut, every little bump on the road, and it makes it uncomfortable at times. So this is definitely a negative point, just because I think the personality of this SUV is more luxurious. It's bigger, there's more space for your family. The steering also means that this is not a sporty SUV, and I think the suspension should have complemented that. Then the whole car would have a singular personality, that of being a luxurious cruiser. But now what it kind of has is just a hodgepodge of a sporty suspension, which just makes it uncomfortably stiff and jittery and jiggly, and a slow and uncommunicative steering, which detracts from any fun dynamic driving. That being said, it's not a terrible car to drive. It's just when you drive them back to back, these differences stand out even more. But at the end of the day, if you treat this as a luxurious big SUV, then I think you wouldn't really be disappointed with the steering. This particular CX-60 costs 63,000 euros. This CX-5 costs 45,000 euros. Now my math is usually never right, but seems like it's about an 18,000 euro difference between these two cars. If you're in the market for an SUV and you're considering one of these two, put it down in the comments below. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what's important to you to make this decision. It will be an interesting discussion to have in the community, and maybe we can find some trends. Perhaps younger people like this, maybe people in certain markets like this instead. So put it down in the comments below. But for now, let me tell you what I like about these two cars and what I don't like about these two cars. The first thing that really caught my attention and what I really appreciate with the CX-60 is the interior. I think the design is very unique, very different than the Germans and very different than the American models, and it really is a unique proposition. It also has plenty of space. The hybrid system means that if you can charge it, that this will definitely give you better mileage, will give you some tax benefits as well. And overall, this is a much more upmarket, premium feeling car. What I didn't like about this is the steering feel. It's very numb, it's very slow, definitely not a sporty SUV. The suspension is also very jittery. On broken surfaces, it does start becoming a little bit uncomfortable. The CX-5, on the other hand, you get what you expect. It's a true Mazda in the sense that it's practical enough, but it handles really well, it rides really well, it has good body control. The steering is really nice and agile, really fun to drive. This 2.5 liter engine is sufficient, gives decent mileage, around 7.1, 7.5 liters for 100 kilometers. So it's a great compromise overall. That being said, it is still 45,000 euros, which is quite a lot for, sure, the top spec version, but the 18,000 euro more for the CX-60, in my opinion, is definitely money well spent. You can really see where that extra 18,000 is going to. So ultimately, it comes down to you. Do you want something a little bit cheaper, a little bit smaller, but fun to drive? Or do you want the tech, the bells and whistles, and the luxury, and that gorgeous interior of the CX-60, and are okay with compromising that sporty steering and handling dynamics? Let me know what you think. Put it down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.